what we call the flow is there. So people, you will guide, when you write the thesis, you need to guide the reader in order to understand your flow clearly. Okay, so ideal number of references. So this is just ideal number. So, but you can have your own, what we call, it depends, one again, it depends on your, what we call your research area. Some area, the references is easy to be obtained, and some it's quite difficult. So it depends on the other number. Is just depends on your what we call research area. 150, 130. This is for me. This other number of references 115 is not it's not referred to the what we call the total number. Okay, 150 is actually the real references that you report and you critique. Okay, maybe some of the references that you use in your thesis, you just add them in order for you to add more references, but you are not clearly or thoroughly discuss or thoroughly report their what we call their works. So for me, that's one is not countable. So the counted one is actually the reference that you use in your report and also in your critical comments. Okay, basically the state of the art methods, which is relevant and related to your works. Okay, so because I know some students, postgrad students, they want to what we call add more references. So they make a very general statement. For example, neural networks has been used widely in what we call robotics, and then after that he or she give a list of references, let's say 5 references. Okay, for more. Then also in manufacturing, he or she give another 5 references. But this references is a very general one, which will not be covered in your research area. So this one for me is not counted as the references. You can put, but for me, it's just the method of you want to what we call add more references. And another issue is student is always let's say he or she failed to get what we call a current or latest references, which is within his or her research area. So he or she try to add more references for the latest references, let's say for 2019, 2020, year 2020, 2019 references, but he or she put it as a what we call still at the general statement. So it also is not counted. So your latest references, a number of references must be thoroughly discussed in your literature review. So meaning that it must be related to your research work. It's not something that very common what we call statement and so on. So you have to remember that PhD student is not just you add references without you do the reporting and also the commenting process. So the PhD, you must make sure that the references that you use are clearly and properly described and discussed in your literature review chapter. Okay. Okay. Next one. Okay, for the research get an objective. Okay, this is also important for the PhD and also for the master. Because now I focus more on the PhD by research and also master by research. There are 2 research gaps, which is we can extract from the real world issue and also from the current state of their issue. They are different between these 2. Okay, so what are the different? Okay, if you read this out from the real world issue, meaning that, okay, I give you example. Let's say we have now in the clinical diagnosis. Okay, still I give you what we call, okay, I give you another example lah. Let's say we want to what we call detect the defect on the certain IC in the industry. When industry produce the IC, there will be maybe a defect, maybe the what we call broken here, broken there, and they will be whatever the defect is. Okay, so that's what we call a real world issue. Okay, industry had a problem with that. Industry had a problem with the defect IC. And then their problem now, they use their own naked eyes, which is too subjective and too time consuming for them to inspect or to detect the defect. Okay, so they need more time, they need extra time. There is a what we call time consuming for them to check one by one IC. So meaning that's what we call the research gap or the problems in a real world issue. Okay, so the real world issue is that. So it is more general. Okay, this is the main issues, the main what we call the general issues of the defect detection in the industry, which is manually done. It is time consuming and also what we call can cause fatigue and so on. So because of that real world problem, there is a method, existing method used to overcome the problem. Let's say at the moment there's only, let's say, 3 methods: method A, method B, method C. So method A does this, apply these techniques, blah blah blah, in order to solve the real world problem. Technique B also use a different one. Technique C also use a different one. So this is what we call the methods that use the current state of the art method used to overcome the real world issue. And you, as a PhD or postgrad student, master as well, you need also to identify, to critique, to review in detail the techniques, those techniques, method A, method B, and method C. What are the problems of those method A, method B, and method C? So from there, so this is what we call the design, your research gaps that design from the current state of the art methods. We are not, so to show that the contribution is neat, you must make sure that you know what is the problem of the current methods and how do you want to overcome the problem. So that's what we call, you need to design from both. The first one is from real world issue and the second one from current state of the art methods. Okay, so I hope you understand. Okay, now, and then, as I mentioned to you, and you have for the PhD and master, so make sure that your research gap at least, as I mentioned to you, we assume that one PhD equals to two master. So make sure that your research gap for the PhD at least 2 up to 3, and then for the master is 1 up to 2. Okay, so when you have the research gap 2, you must have at least research objective also 2. One research objective, we map to the one specific research objective. Okay, when you have 3 research gaps, so you must have a 3 research objective. So we know that, okay, this is the problem and this is the objective, how to solve the problem. So it match one problem, one objective, another problem, another objective. Okay, so it's clear. So for the reader or for the examiner, in order to the flow of your works, research work. Okay, so this is about the research gap and objective. Question before I proceed. Okay, now the next one. This is a contribution. Okay, the contribution as a supervisor or as an examiner, how do I what we call evaluate the students what we call contributions? Okay, so there are a few types of contribution that for me as a based on my experience. So I classify this type of contribution based on my experience. There is no specific what we call guidelines or whatever. So this is, as I mentioned to you, it is all about my based on my model my experience. Okay, so I divide my student contribution into 7. Okay, the first one is a new technique or a new methods, meaning that the students came out with a new techniques, a new method, which is for me is a very good contribution. So that's why I call it a very high for the PhD students. Okay, the second one, Okay, this is the most what we call common contribution by student, including my PhD student, which is you have the existing methods, you have the existing techniques, or you have the existing idea, you have the existing approaches, whatever the existing that you have now, you modify it, modify the techniques, modify the methods. Okay, so for me, this is another contribution, and it is I set it as a high contribution. Okay, but for the master, it is a very high. Okay, but for the PhD, it's enough for the PhD. And then the next one is a new concept, part 9. New concept and part 9, meaning that I use the existing methods, but the what we call the approach to reach at the certain objective, whatever, I change the approach. I change the what we call the flow charts of that techniques. I'm using I'm using the existing technique, but I change the flow chart. I change the approach, meaning that some of the approach, some of the what we call, let's say you have several stages. So maybe I remove another 1 or 2 stages, I add a new stages, whatever. So that's what I meant by new concept. Okay, so you introduce a new concept or new part 9 in order for you to achieve certain objectives. So that's why that's what will also for me is a high contribution. But you must make sure that now you are introducing a new concept. So you must make sure that proof of the concept is clearly done. Okay, so you must make sure that your concept, the new concept, what is the difference between the new concept and the existing one, and why you need to remove certain stages and why you need to add certain stages. Okay, so it must be thoroughly explained, theoretically explained before you prove it by using your analysis and so on. So whatever is as a PhD student, when you want to modify something, when you want to introduce new idea, or you want to introduce or modify versions of techniques and methods, there is one skill that you need to have, which is you need to prove it theoretically in chapter methodology. Okay, so why you introduce that techniques, why you introduce that equation, why you introduce that stage, why you remove that stage, theoretically why. So it must be clearly explained in your methodology section before you prove it by using certain analysis in your chapter 4, which is result and discussion. It's not something that, okay, oh, I get the ilham, what we call ilham in, I get the, last night, after I slept, whatever, I woke up this morning, I get the idea. So I just put the idea in my methodology without support with the theoretically explanations and discussion and so on. So that's what we call is not, for me, it's not acceptable, because there must be a reason behind what we call any introductions of new knowledge or modification of existing methods. That's why you need to have a very thorough what we call knowledge in your literature review, because your literature review will support theoretically your introduction of new idea or modification of existing methods. Okay, so that's why, as I mentioned to you, chapter 2 is important for the research student. Okay, and then the next one is modified concept. Okay, existing concept you modify here and there. Okay, so this one for the PhD is between high and medium, but for the MSc is still high because you able to modify something. Okay, for MSc this one, this sure is very high lah. Okay, and then another thing is hybrid and integrated. Integrate and hybrid. There is a what we call difference between hybrid and integrated. Okay, for the PhD, for integrated is low, hybrid is medium for me. Okay, what is the difference between hybrid and integrated? Hybrid and integrated, let's say you have two methods, method A and method B. Okay, so what is hybrid? Hybrid means both hybrid and integrated, you want to join both. You want to join, you want to mix between method A and method B in order for you to have a new method. You call it method C, for example. Okay, so hybrid means integrated. Okay, I start with integrated. Integrated means you have method A, you have method B, you join together, meaning that you give the input for method A, then you get the output from method A. This output you feed into the method B, and you get the output. Without you what we call modify or change anything for method A and method B. That's why we call it integrated. You join together. Okay, you have the input go to method A, get the output. The output of method A, you propagate or feed to the method B, and you get the output. So that's what we call the integrated. There is no change whatever. Okay, so that's why for the PhD, I set it as a low contribution because you do not do anything. You just what we call take method 1, method B, you combine together. Okay, hybrid means you have method A, you have method B, you combine them together, then you mix them together first. Okay, you mix them together first, then you give method A, you give the input to the combined of method A and method B, then you get the output. So that's what we mix first before you give the input. Okay, so that's why the level of contribution for the hybrid and integrated for me is different. Okay, so hybrid techniques you need extra work because when you want to combine them or you want to mix them together to come out with one full meat, they what we call, they should be what we call few cases to be investigated. Maybe it's not fixed there. You need to change here and there, a little bit here and there. So that's why the hybrid and the integrated will be a different. For integrated is only okay. You have the parameter. You just change the parameter. You just change the parameter, the value of the parameter. But for the hybrid technique, maybe the parameter have to be what we call the equation have to be modified here and there, a little bit here and there. So that is the difference between hybrid and integrated. Okay, so the integrated you just play with the change of the number of parameter, change of the so that's what the integrated. But the hybrid is you join together, but you need to do extra works. Maybe you need to modify the equation here and there and so on. So that's what we call the difference between the hybrid and integrated. So that's why I give a different level of contribution for both processes. Okay, and then for the last one, this is for me. I'm not advise you to go for this kind of contribution. You use the same techniques, you use the same method, but you use for a different application. Let's say they have a method A and B. So method A is only is not being used yet in medical, for example. They are only used in industry. So you want to what we call to investigate either the method A can be used in medical or not. So you use the method A exactly. Then you just apply to a medical data, for example. So this is very low contribution of PhD. Because if you remember, I think if I give it to final year project, still they can use it. They can investigate either it can be used or not. So you must make sure that where are you? Okay, so you are the PhD student, so you must make sure that you have all the skill. The skill must be in each area. You have a very good what we call skill in fundamental, skill in literature review, skill in reporting, skill in critiquing, then skill in introducing new techniques with support of technical explanation and so on. Okay, so that's the important criteria for the PhD students. Okay. Okay. Now the analysis. I'm still in the PhD versus master. Okay. Now, for the analysis, for the PhD, the comparisons, you can for the PhD, whatever the research that we done. Okay. So when we complete certain research, we must we must compare our techniques with other techniques. Otherwise, we are in the form of, we call it short sendiri, meaning that you claim that you are the best, but there is no comparison limit. Okay, so that's not a good research attitude. Okay, so you must make sure that whatever that you propose, whatever that you introduce, you must compare it with another techniques or another methods. Okay, so by comparing, then you can claim that your technique is better than others. Okay, so there are two types of comparison. Okay, the first one, we call it the comparison with conventional methods, meaning that let's say you want to have the ANN, a new architecture of neural networks, then you modify the architecture from what we call the basic neural network, which is the multi-layer perceptron, MLP. MLP is a basic neural network. Now you do the changes of the architecture. So you have a new technique. For example, let's say MLP version A, for example. Then you must make sure, because you modified from the conventional methods, you must compare with that conventional methods to show that your improvement is actually acceptable. Okay, so that's why for the comparison with conventional method, it must be you must have that for the PhD, master, and also master by mixed mode. Okay, so because you compare with the conventional method, you modify from the conventional method, so you must make sure that you compare with that conventional method to show that any types of modification or introduction of new knowledge or whatever is acceptable and reliable. Okay, and then for the PhD, it's not and the master, it's not just that. You need also to compare with the current state of the methods, meaning that, let's say I give you the example for the NLP there. So the basic neural network is NLP. Now you modified the architecture of the MLP, and then there is also existing method that modify the MLP. Let's say, for example, there are 10 methods which try to modify the architecture of the MLP, and they claims, all of those research work claims that they are better than what we call the conventional MLP. So after you compare with the conventional MLP, you must make sure that you choose, okay, a few methods from the current state of the art methods, and you need to compare with them. This is one to show the robustness of your techniques. Okay, it's not enough. This is not enough for you to only compare with the conventional, but you also must compare with the current state of the methods. And let's say you have 10 methods, current state of methods, and you choose 4 out of them. You must clearly state why you choose these 4 methods and why not another 6 methods. Okay, are they the best one? Are they the current one or the latest one, or what? So you must make sure that you state the reason why you choose those methods to be compared with the methods. And please make sure that when you compare with the current state of the art methods, they are in the same family of your methods. It's not fair if, let's say, your method use architecture of type A, but this method use type B. So then you compare, you say that you are better. But the what we call the types of architecture is not similar, so it is not fair. So you must make sure that everything. That's why when you want to compare with some methods, you must make sure that there is a reason. Must be a reason why you choose that methods. Okay, so they must be in the same family, and they must be the best ones, and they must be the latest one. Okay, so to make sure that your techniques is not outdated. Okay, so it's still what we call valuable currently. Okay, so otherwise it's obsolete. So you outdated. You must make sure there is the contribution there is what we call can be appreciated by outside world. Okay, now number of benchmark of the standard data set. If you use the data set, so it's much better because when you what we call, there is a standard procedure, a standard benchmark used by existing method in order for them to prove that the techniques are good. So you must use the same benchmark, you must use the same standard data set. Otherwise, your techniques is cannot be compared with others because it's not fair. Okay, and for the real case, for real case studies for the PhD, please at least have one case study. After you compare, after you check or you what we call test with the standard or benchmark data set, try to use your own case study data set for the PhD to show that your techniques is reliable and applicable for the real world scenario. Okay, so this is actually one to differentiate between the PhD and also the master research. Okay, so master research is only nice to have, but for the PhD, it's must have. And qualitative and quantitative analysis must have for PhD, MSc, and also MSc management. So this is very important. Why? Because in the methodology, you have proposed new technique and you have support your discussion why you use or introduce or modify the techniques with a theoretical discussion or reason. Now it is a time for you to use the analysis in order to prove whatever the theory that you highlighted in your methodology. Okay, so that's very important. Once again, so these are the criteria must be you have to check a checklist for the PhD in terms of analysis of your results. Okay, that's what we call the difference between master and the PhD. So is there any what we call question or whatever you want to ask? You can have you can use the chat. I try to communicate your question if you want before I continue with the thesis content. Is there any question?
Hello, Prof. Haslisa here. Perhaps Prof can continue presenting, then we will have like 15 minutes for Q&A later on.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I continue with the thesis content. Okay, now we continue with what we call our main topic today, which is how to write an impactful thesis. Okay, the impactful tool is just the bombastic words I try to use in order to attract the attention. So basically, I will share with you how you can what we call came out with a good thesis. Okay, so you have to remember before you start a thesis, you have to remember everything. Your evaluations on your capability as a PhD student or master student is 100% based on your thesis. Okay, so you must make sure that all the information, important information, are clearly presented in your thesis. Okay, so if you think that it's okay, I will wait until the Viva and I will what we call explain anything. So this is not the issues. The issues that when whatever is examiners, we are 100% based on the thesis. Okay, if you have the problem to present your ideas in a good way in your thesis, so I think you also have a problem during your Viva. Okay, so make sure that the content is clear and you properly present your the idea from the beginning until the end. Okay, so conventionally the important section in thesis. So this is a conventional organization of thesis. Okay, so we have the title here, abstract. Then we have 5 chapters. Chapter 1, introduction. Chapter 2 is literature review. Then we move the methodology. We move to the result and discussion, and we move to the conclusion. And we end up with the list of references. So this for me is an important section. There is another section that's content section, list of abbreviation, list of symbol or whatever. So I will not touch on that because I want to touch on the main body of your thesis. So this for me, these are 8 main body, 8 sections in your thesis. So you need to make sure that they are properly presented. Okay. Now title. We go on. Title. Okay, title. Please, if you possible, try to have a short, simple, concise, and solid title. Okay, so the title will give the first impression to the readers, to the examiners about the whole thesis. When people or examiners read the title, he knows that okay, these are the research areas to be covered by the student. Okay, so it must give that impression as the level of the work. Either you want to have the applied research work, or you want to have a fundamental research work. Okay, so this is what we call the level of work and intensiveness of work. Either it's applied or it's fundamental. Okay, they try to use a catchy or bombastic words to attract attention, because when we have a very common keywords or common title, whatever, it is very boring. Okay, so try to have a very bombastic words. Okay, try to, for example, but you have to be careful when you want to use a catchy or bombastic. Okay, when you use catchy and bombastic, you must make sure that you are able to support the keywords. For example, students always commonly use keyword novel. Okay, novel is actually a very big word. Okay, so instead of you use a novel, you can use a modified version. You can use a new, because it's a little bit lower level. Novel is something very boom, very fun. It must support with a very thorough analysis. If you think that your analysis is just blah 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 blah, just please do not use a novel. The word novel. For example, you use also some of you also use a robust techniques of. Robust is also a very big word. Okay, please do not too ambitious. Please know your level. Okay, use only modified, new. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's not to impress impress reader or to impress the reader by using what we call them robust techniques, or novel technique, whatever. Because novel and robust is very big words. If you can show that it is really novel and it's really robust, with your good analysis, with a thorough analysis, with the detailed analysis, with a detailed theoretical, then it's okay. If you think that you cannot want to prove it, you only can prove that it's a modification, then use a modified neural network. It's not a novel neural network. It's different. Huh? Novel neural network and modified neural network is different. So try to be what we call realistic lah, based on your need. Okay. Now, after that, then you have also need to signify the types of research that have been done. Either it's a lab-based, or it's a product-based, fundamental-based, or simulation-based, and so on. Okay, and signify the niche area. This is very important. Okay, so your niche area. What is your niche area? Neural networks. Neural network is very big, so multi-layer perceptron or whatever. Okay, then it must reflect your work done. So this is very important lah. Okay, so it must reflect your work, and it must tally and related to your work. Otherwise, you have to change your title. So although the title is only one sentence, but it's very important in order for you to what we call introduce in general what is your project. Okay. I'll give you an example. Okay, this is three types example. Okay, three titles. So which one is the best title? Okay, for the first one is signal integrity analysis of high-speed interconnects via a deep machine learning artificial intelligence algorithms. The second one is the same, but there is a E. So theoretical formulation for signal integrity analysis of high-speed interconnects via a deep. So this is what we call the additional of theoretical formulation. And the third one is the same, but we remove the artificial intelligence algorithm. Okay, so which one is the best one? Which is the better title? Okay, so for sure, this one it do not show what we call the level of your works. Okay, you want, in this case, actually, they want to formulate a new theory for signal integrity. So this is very important to show that this is the level that you want to achieve. Okay, so for sure for this one, it's not a good one because it's what we call is not show the level of the research work to be carried out. Okay, and then it have for this one, it have what we call the niche area, which is signal integrity of high-speed interconnect. Okay, and then for this one, what is the difference between this one and this one? A deep machine learning, artificial intelligence algorithms, basically these two is AI, so no need to repeat it. It's enough for you to stop at deep machine learning. So that's why you have to make sure that try to be the shortest that you can, but the title must cover the whole what we call the whole content of your thesis, the level of your research, and then what we call the niche area that you want to cover, and also what are the techniques that you want to use. Okay, so you must make sure that everything is there. And when I read the third paper, I know, oh, this candidate wants to formulate a new therapy for a signal integrity. So for what? For high-speed interconnection, by using what? By using deep machine learning. So I know that here we have one keyword here. The second keyword is deep learning. The third keyword is signal integrity analysis of high-speed interconnection. So there are three main research area, niche area will be covered. So he should know the level until level of formulate the theoretical equation and so on, and then to be used in signal integrity analysis by using a deep machine learning. Okay, so everything must be. Noisy here. Can you off the microphone? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the title 3 is the best title. Okay, it is a good title. Deep learning skin lesion detection method of the dermoscopic image. Why? Because the status is here. Okay, the is short, simple. It gives the impression as the level of give the impression as to the level of work? No. Because we do not know either they want to, he or she want to develop a system, or he or she want to modify the deep learning or what. Okay, and then use Scce and Mobasi. Oh, okay, acceptable because we have the deep learning here, the dermoscopic images here, also it's quite. Oh, people will know what is dermoscopic. So that's what we call Mobasi or catchy words. Okay, it's acceptable. Signify the type of research? No. We don't know either he or she want to, as I mentioned, focus on the fundamental, which is want to develop or to modify the deep learning, or you want to what we call develop the applied detection methods. So the research is not what we call the type of research is not clear. Niche area acceptable because we know he or she wants to what we call focus on deep learning for the detection system for the dermoscopic images. Reflect the works acceptable because we know that he or she wants to focus on dermoscopy. So the suggestion is for the rest, yes, and acceptable is okay, but for the impression, I think better modification of existing idea or introduction of a new view should be put here at the beginning of your title. And how about the type of research? Please make sure you want to develop or you want to formulate, to make sure that the level is there. Either you want to focus on development or you want to focus on the formulation. Okay. Okay. For the rest of my presentation today, I will use example of one of my PhD students, which is classification of cervical squamous epithelial cells using artificial neural networks based on chromatin patterns and nuclear membrane irregularity. Okay, is this a good title or not? Okay, for me it is acceptable because we know what are the works to be done, which is to classify the cervical cell. Okay, so this is type of the cervical cell. The cervical cell is something, the cell that they come from human, what we call human cervix. Okay, so he or she tried to classify the cervical cell, by using artificial neural network, because this is, although it takes quite what we call general, because artificial neural network, it is acceptable because the student use several types of neural networks. So that's why it is possible to specify the types of neural networks. So that's why we use the artificial neural network as general. And how? By using the chromatic patterns and nuclear membrane. So meaning that he or she will focus these two issues, the chromatic patterns, and focus on the nuclear membrane. By using these two, she will classify the spherical cell by using the artificial networks. So you have to know exactly what is your idea, what is your work, and combine a few what we call ideas there to come up with one good thesis title. Okay, after the title, we move to the abstract. An abstract must be in Bahasa Melayu and Bahasa Inggeris. So both are the same. So I will show you in English, then you can translate in Bahasa Melayu. So what is abstract? So abstract, for me, it should be written in one paragraph. It should be written in one paragraph. Okay. So it must what we call include these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 items. 8 materials. The first one is introductions or motivations. Introductions to your works. What motivate you in order for you to keep up with that research work? The second one, clearly state what is the problem statement. Only 1 to 3 sentences. If you have two problem statements, 2 sentences. If you have 3 problem statements, 3 sentences. Because this is not the time for you to explain. It's just for you to what we call state the problem statement. Okay. So if you have one paragraph of a problem statement, try to summarize them in 1 sentence. State that in the abstract. So that's why I have 1 to 3 sentences. Introduction is very brief, 1 to 2 sentences only, not more than that. You are not in the chapter 1 yet. You are in the abstract. So you just give the very general idea to the readers. Okay. That objective 1 to 3 sentences as well. It depends on it depends on the problem statement. If you have 2 problem statement, 2 sentences with 2 objective, 2 sentences. Okay. Methodology just state what is the ideas, what is the method, the basic concept, the general concept, the general methods to be introduced or to be modified in your techniques, not in details. Okay, what is the main point? What is the main idea? What is the main contribution? What is the main new idea, the main modified idea that make your research what we call the beauty of your research? Okay, and different between your techniques and other techniques. Okay, 2 or 4 sentences. Then provide state the main results. 2 and 4 sentences as well, and main discussion. Based on that result, what is the outcome? Okay, and then conclusion, 1 sentence. And the most important thing also is the significance of your research, because we want to know you do that research work. So what is the significance of your research? It's not just something that you want to do by, I just because I love to do research, so I want to do any research without you know the significance of your research. So you must make sure that what we call the significance must be clearly stated, and it should be in 1 paragraph. Okay. 1 sentence is not 1 paragraph. Okay. So all together must be in 1 paragraph, and try to not exceed more than 1.5 page. Okay. Try to 1 page or 1.5 page, 1.25 page is enough. We want to know. We just want to know the main idea, the main introduction, the main research background, the main problem statement, the main objective, the main idea of your methodology, the main results that shows the what we call the beauty of your research, and the conclusion and the significance. Therefore, if the reader want to know more, he will go to chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and so on. Okay. Okay. Now we go one by one. Introduction. Okay. So introduction is 1 to 2 sentences. What to be put there? So just introduce the reader to the topic of your research. Okay, highlight the main state-of-the-art methods that motivate your study. For example, what we call manual diagnosis procedure of the cervical cancer is very what we call have disadvantages such as time consuming, as well as what we call too subjective, because maybe what we call a different doctors we came up with a different results and so on. So that's why there are many techniques has been introduced in order to what we call to overcome the problem. So that's introduction enough. Okay, so that's what we call the introduction enough. So the recent topic you want to check about the cervical cancer. What is the problem of manual diagnosis? Then highlight them is that okay, people have done it in order for have an automated system which is a more objective. The result is more objective and it is not time consuming. So enough. 2 sentences is enough. Just give the general idea. Okay, we don't want to have a very detail. If we want to detail, so we will move to the chapter 1 later. Okay, and then what is the problem statement? Okay, so problem statement must be you state the common problems of those state-of-the-art methods, and then it must be specific, clear, and solid. By using 1 or 2 sentences, you must make sure that the research gap is clear, cover the whole problems, and must be specific. For example, okay, let's say one of the problems of the manual is low quality of image, which obscure or the doctor cannot see the important features. Enough. That's the first problem statement. The second one, where there are many what we call the variations of the nucleus of the cell is not is not consistent from one cell to another cell. So it might give what we call problems to the to the doctors in order to identify the correct what we call types of the cervical cells. That's the second. So let's say these are the 2 problems. So enough. So the first problem is about you have a problem with the quality of the image. The second one, the problems of the different what we call different shape, different variations of the nuclear cell, whatever, which difficult for the what we call doctors to identify the types of the. So enough. These 2 sentences is enough because you want to focus on these 2 problem statements. Okay, so you must clear about your problem statement. Okay. Okay, the next one, objective, and as I mentioned, it must relate to your research gap, must be specific as well, must be clear, must be solid, and the most important thing, it must be measurable and achievable. Do not take something objective that what we call is too ambitious, which you think that you cannot, or what we call grab, or you cannot answer the objective. It must be realistic. Okay, so for example, previously I said that the problem is the quality of image is the content is not good, it's blurred. So the project is you want to have a new what we call a modified fuzzy logic based algorithms for content enhancements in order for you to enhance the what we call the cervical cell images. Enough. And then the second one, you have a problem with the what we call to extract the variations of the nucleus shape or nucleus shape or whatever. So your second objective will be to what we call to introduce a new neural network, for example, a new network based features extractions to extract the what we call the shape and the size of the cervical cell nucleus. Okay, so that's all. Okay, so meaning that you have one specific research gap, then this is one specific of the objective. So back one by one. So it's clear how to do it. We until chapter 4, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and so on. Okay, so then measurable, achievable. We must make sure that okay, when you introduce to what have a contrast enhancement, yeah, there is a analysis which you can measure the quality of your techniques by using qualitative analysis and quantitative and qualitative analysis. So you know already the analysis that will be applied in order for you to achieve the objective. If you don't have the idea about the analysis, in order for you to prove or to answer the techniques, then you need to change your objective. Must make sure that your objective is measurable and achievable. Okay, and some students they are always try to impress the what we call the examiners by using, as I mentioned, a novel techniques, a rompas techniques, or whatever. So for me, I know you are human. You are still in what we call in the early stage of your research. This is not. It is impossible. It's quite impossible for you to keep up with a very novel or very powerful techniques. So although I'm in 16 years or 17 years, I'm still not able to create or to introduce a novel techniques or robustness technique. I'm still learning to improve my techniques, my existing techniques. So that's why do not too ambitious. The word novel and the word robustness and others, please do not use it. Excellence. Good, okay, excellent is a big word. So you must make sure that you use what we call the correct and appropriate terminology. If you think that is excellence, so the excellence means there is no limitation of your works. But at the end of the day, there is a limitation, I'm sure. So please use a very what we call the appropriate keywords and do not too ambitious. Okay, so it must be achievable. Then about the methodology, just highlight the new and modified concept, idea, approach, method, and so on. Specify theoretically how the proposed work could overcome the research gap, achieve the objective. For example, let's say you want to use a fuzzy-based contract enhancement, for example, for the objective. So nowadays, for the contract enhancement, people only use statistical, what we call equation, meaning that it fixed. If the statistical say this one, so the contract enhancement will do specific works. But for the if the equation is what we call another so will be applied with another what we call specific algorithm. But now you think that the sums of the images they are blur depends on the quality of the camera. So the contrast will be vary from one type of camera to another type of camera. So it's quite what we call a fuzzy case. So that's why you want to introduce a fuzzy concept in your contract enhancement. So that's the highlight, the modified concept. So you want to introduce the fuzzy concept because you know that we use a different types of camera, which really a different types of what we call the contrast. So meaning that when we use a fuzzy base, so your techniques can first detect what are the level of the contrast. Okay, then when it automatically what we call detect the level of the contrast, then it will what we call propose specific techniques in order to overcome the problem. So that's the idea that you want to introduce. Okay, so theoretically, how? Because the fuzzy can help in order to differentiate between one quality of camera to another quality of camera. Okay, so that's only how to highlight the new ones. How do you do it? Chapter 3. Okay, so this only highlight the modification that to be introduced or to be modified. Okay, and make sure that your concept must relate to your research gap and your objectives. They must be boom together. They must be mapped together. That's why for me, you have to have a good research gap. You must have a good literature review because everything now will go back to your research gap. Go back to your literature review. Okay, without a solid research gap, so your thesis will not be a good one. Okay, so trust me, literature review is very important. Okay, and then the main results. Okay, when you what we call produce, when you propose what we call the The fuzzy base, so just show, okay, the what we call the fuzzy base, the introduced fuzzy base method has successfully identified what we call the types of what we call the quality of the quality and the content of the image before it's proposed what we call a specific profile enhancement. So in that case, the images, what we call the resulting images are better as compared to conventional by producing, okay, what we call the PSNR value or whatever the C value, 20% improvement, blah blah blah, as compared to the existing methods. So highlight what we call the quality and also the quantitative results. Okay, highlight the main point. Okay. Down the line, could Professor explain methods to write the research question? Okay, okay, I will. They will be in chapter 1. I will read later. Ahmad Faizal. Okay, in chapter 1. Okay, then main discussion. Okay, so when you have the results, so discuss either your proposed idea done successfully implemented or what, and then please highlight the advantages and the limitation of the techniques. Okay, so the limitation. One more thing, students always afraid to state or to explain, to discuss about the limitations. Okay, the problem is a good researcher is not only can explain or discuss about the disadvantages of his or her works, he or she must also able to highlight the limitation, because research is a continuity process. So we don't want our research to be stopped here. We want other people to what we call continue our research, to make sure that our research is valuable and can be accepted by outside world. So meaning that if people cite your works or improve your works, so you should be proud, because it seems that your research work is actually what we call accepted by research world. Okay, so that's why it's very important. It's also important for you to know the limitation of research work. Try to discuss them, the limitation. In your chapter 4, which is result and discussion, because that's why in chapter 5 you have another section, future works. Okay, the future works. Why we need the future works? Because before you know how to what we call suggest the future work, you need to know the limitation of your techniques. So please bear in mind, a good researcher must have ability to highlight the advantages and also know the limitation of his or her works. Okay, it's not give up. I know some of students are afraid that when you state the limitation, then it will trigger the examiner to ask about the problems. It's not that. When you state the problem, so examiner already know this is the problem, so he or she will not ask about the problem. Okay, so you know exactly the scope, because you have one of the most important thing, the research. What is your research scope? So you are not covering every angle. You are covering a certain angle. So that's why the research scope is very important. You have to make sure the readers or the examiner understand. Okay, your research is from A to M only. It's not from A to Z. Okay, so outside the after N until Z, so this is actually falls under your future works. Okay, so fall under limitation. So that's why when you limit your scope, so ultimately, so okay, he or she did not do that. So why should I question that or whatever? So you mean that? So try to make sure that you know your advantages and you highlight also your limitations. Okay, so limitation will make sure that examiners know, okay, this is the scope until this point. So up until this point, so this will be a future works. PhD is not everything. It's about specific or a specific scope of your research area. Okay, so make sure that you know exactly your boundary from which point to which point. Okay, now the conclusion. Conclude the whole research only one sentence. So answer, does the proposed work overcome the research gap and achieve the research objective? This is what we want, the conclusion. Okay, it's a very simple one sentence. Yeah, and then try to show the significance of your research work. State the potential of the proposed work in terms of opportunity for future research and or its potential application to the real world. So why you do the research? What is the important? It's not just like what we call the super, but it gives something important to the what we call the real world, to the research world. So I think what we call state the significance of the research world. Okay, so people will appreciate more. Okay, wait ah. Okay. Next one, I give you the example. Okay, so this is an example of my students. Okay, I'm not claiming that my students is a perfect, the aspect is the perfect one, but I try to give you the ideas, the main items to be included in your aspect. Okay, the first one. If you refer to the first one, so this is the introduction. Only 2 sentences. Cervical cancer is the second most common cancer among women in Malaysia. So I want to introduce, this work is actually about cervical cancer. Okay, and then the implementation of Pap smear, okay, results in significant reduction in mortality from cervical cancer. Okay, people know, okay, Pap smear is what we call commonly related to the cervical cancer. So this is the introduction. So this is the general area, research area, which is cervical cancer, and I want to she want to focus on the Pap smear, which is the dish area. Only focus on the Pap smear, which is the what we call the images of the cervical cell, in order to detect the cervical cancer. So this is the introduction. So people will know, he want to use, she wants to focus on the Pap smear, which is to for the cervical cancer. Now, this is a research gap. The first research gap is Pap smear is prone to the error due to the limitation of in humans. Okay, so because it's too subjective, highly subjective. Okay, and then rely on the skill and experience. The second one, we also have then what is your objective? So you want to have the contribution of disease in 2 aspects in the engineering and clinical application, algorithm in image enhancement and segmentation, is used to quantifying the diagnostic criteria of the reporting standards. So we need that because of the problems of the highly subjective. So we want to have the what we call a more subjective algorithms in order to have a better reporting standard. Okay, based on the diagnostic criteria. Okay, so how this study proposed 2 image enhancement technique, blah 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 blah. So this is the introduction. This is the research gap. The problems is the highlighted, and our objective, we want to have the technique which is more objective. Okay, and then this is the methodology. Okay, so we will use a fuzzy CMIT to quantify the nuclear chromatin pattern. Okay, then how to do it? We start with the NILM. Then we try to give to show the representative. This is the technique you use. We try to use a sensitivity level in order to determine the what we call the irregularity of our nucleus. After we start with the what we call the benign one or the normal one, then we move to the what we call the abnormal one. So this is actually the concept to be introduced in the students' research work. Okay. Then this is the main results. The main result, what our finding, the chromatin distribution model of the normal and abnormal can represent the visual perception of human expert. Okay, we are successfully devised. Okay, then we compare with the what we call the existing one, which is Bethesda system and also BSCC. So we compare with this one, we compare with this one. So it seems that our techniques, the students' techniques, are different as compared to BSISA, but similar to the BSCC. Okay, so this is the main results and our main discussion. Okay, so this is the main result. We have successfully devised the model, and we compare with the BSISA and BSCC. This is what we call the discussion. So how we compare it? In chapter 4. Okay, this is only to state the main point, the main answer. Okay, and then this is the conclusion. At the end of this research, a complete computer-aided screening system for cervical cancer is successfully developed. And what is the significance? Okay, so the proposed system is developed with the aim to assist pathologists and cytotechnologists, and hence it is hoped that the incidence as well as the mortality rate due to cervical cancer emission can be reduced. So why is important? Because this system can be used to assist pathology and cytotechnologists. Okay, so this is I give you the general idea. So you start with the introduction, then you state the problems of the real world and also the standard methods. Then we move to the objective. Then we move to the main idea of the methodology and discussion, and also we conclude with the conclusion, and lastly a significance of your study. So to show that your research work has a value to the outside world. Okay. Chapter 1. Okay, before I go for the chapter 1, is there any question about the abstract? No? Okay. We move to the chapter 1. So chapter 1 is introduction. What is the importance of your introduction chapter? Is to introduce the reader about your whole thesis, about the whole thesis. Okay, so what is the information to be included? For sure, research background, problem statement, objective, research scope, and thesis outline. Okay, basically research background is we will have a detailed research background in chapter 2, but now it's just want to introduce. Okay, it's something that if you want to enter someone's house, you need to knock it, and then you need to give salam, assalamualaikum. So this is what you call a research work. And when you enter the what we call the house, and you explain who are you, what are they, what is in chapter 2. But chapter now is only research background now is only you knock the door and you give salam. Okay, and then you want to introduce, let's say you want to sell something, whether you want to sell some gadget, whatever, to the house owner. So that one is actually in chapter 2. You introduce yourself, you introduce your gadget. That one in the chapter 2. But now it's only you knock the door and you give salam. Okay, so this is what we call the research background here. So I try to give that kind of analogy. So I hope you understand. Okay, the problem statement, once again, essentially you just because you do the literature review basically. Okay, my style chapter 1, I ask my students to write chapter 1 at the end of the last chapter to be written is chapter 1 and chapter 5. Okay, so I want them to start with chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and then after that, when they know about their literature review, they know about their what we call the methodology, they know about the result and discussion, then they go back to chapter 1. Because chapter 1 is actually want to introduce to the whole thesis. So problem statement is actually is a summary of your chapter 2. Because your chapter 2, you do all those review, you do all those the revise, the reporting, you review, you critiques, and then whatever that you get, the main idea, the main content in chapter 2, you put it in under a section of problem statements. Okay, so that's why for me, I want my students to start with the chapter 2, so they know exactly their works, their what we call their direction, their problem, their research area. Okay, so they know their research area. Then after that, they know, okay, this is the problem. Then move to chapter 3, methodology, how to solve the problem. And after that, you have the methodology, how you want to prove that your methodology is successful. Then you go to chapter 4. You provide all the results, you provide all those analysis and measurement and so on. So basically, this is the main body of your thesis. Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and Chapter 4. They are related. This is very important. These 3 chapters must be thoroughly explained. Then, based on this body, then you move back to Chapter 1. Because Chapter 1 is an introduction to you want to relate back these 3 main body. What is the problem statement? So based on the problem statement, what is your what we call to objective in order to achieve that problem and so on. So that's why for me, I always ask my students to write Chapter 1 until he or she complete Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and Chapter 4. Okay, so he knows what is actually the problem statement. Because when you start the Chapter 1, you know your problem statement. You state your problem statement here. Then suddenly, when you move to the Chapter 3, it seems that your technique is not relevant. It's not good enough. So you need to change your methodology. When you change the methodology, you need to change back your problem statement here. So that's the problem. So that's why I want my students to complete Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4. When they completely done that, then they know exactly the problem statement, then they go back to Chapter 1. So it's actually there. It's actually there. So once again, please highlight the main problem. So for me as a supervisor, if you have 3, let's say you have 3 research gap, I only want my student have 3 paragraphs in that session. 1 paragraph talk about 1 problem statement. Okay. So I want you to make sure that the problem statements too is there. That every single statement is thoroughly discussed in specific paragraph. If you have 2 problem statements, 2 paragraphs is enough. Okay. Or you can have another additional, which is the first one. The first paragraph is you want to show about the about the scenario of the problem or the real world before you go specific for the what we call this research gaps. That's okay. If you have 2 research gap, then you can have 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is about the general problem of the what we call research world, real case study or real world. And then the other 2 is specifically for each research gap. Okay, I hope you understand. And once again, objective, as I mentioned, is a very straightforward. Based on the problem statements, the objective of this research is 1, to propose blah blah blah, which is to overcome the first research gap. The second one, to develop blah 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 in order to what we call make sure that essentially mapped to your second research gap. That's all. No need to explain about the objective. When to want to explain about the objective? In Chapter 3, when you talk about methodology. Okay, so methodology, then methodology you give in detail why you propose that idea. What is the stages or the processes involved and so on. Okay, so the next one is research scope. As I mentioned, research scope is very important to make sure that readers or examiners, yang penting sekali, most important examiners, to show that the limit, the boundary of your research. You are not able to do everything from A to Z. Okay, you can have from A to B only. It's okay from only 2 steps, A and B, but make sure that you have a very thorough methodology, a very good analysis. You support the analysis. You support your what we call your research gap, your objective in a very good analysis, a very good theoretical discussion, and so on. So it's enough. It's not that you need to do everything. It's not that when you have a what we call from A to Z, then you can get your PhD. No, sometimes it's rubbish. Okay, when you have a very too big scope, at the end of the day, it came out with the rubbish. Because you everything is very shallow, it's very surface. So PhD is about niche area. You can focus on the A, or even A, B, or on the A, even A. If you want to focus on the A, you are not what we call touch or B until Z. It's okay. If you want to focus on A, make sure you know everything about the A. Okay, and it supports, theoretically supports your contribution. and then your analysis measurement supports your what we call your directions to you. It's enough. It's about how you kept out with a research work, how you know everything about the A. You know you have a very solid, good fundamental knowledge about that. Okay, so that's very for me. You have to know yourself. You as a PhD. So what are the elements that you need to know? You need to know everything. Okay, so because it's each other. It's about not. So that's why research scope is very important. You try to make sure that this is a boundary. This is the boundary of your research. You are not outside the boundary. Okay. And then the thesis outline is is only want to give the outlines of the whole thesis. Chapter 2 is about what, chapter 3 is about what, and so on. Okay, the information should be brief, but cover the all aspects of your thesis. The information, the detailed information will be in chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4. Here is only about the brief. General is cover the whole aspect. Okay. Now, research background. As I mentioned, introduce the research area. Okay, if you are on the cervical cancer, just introduce about cervical cancer. What is cervical cancer? Do not. We don't want the basic about cervical cancer. Cervical cancer is what we call the factor of cervical cancer is blah blah blah. It start with the normal cell, it become a normal cell. We don't want that because we are not in a medical field. We are in engineering field. You just introduce research area. Cervical cancer is the second common cancer among women. It is the mortality can be reduced if you have a proper screening test. And the common one is pap smear. However, pap smear is a very important have a limitation. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so that's introduction. That's what we call the introduction. Because we are engineering. We don't want to see. Okay, pap smear start with the what we call the cell is taken from human cervix and then smear on the slide, then put under the microscope. We get no. If you want to put that, then it will be in chapter 2. Now it's only a introduction. Okay, and then highlight the importance area. So you want to focus in what? You want to focus in pap smear. Okay, so introduce that pap smear. Okay, and then limitation of that area in terms of real world scenario. What is the problems of? Because now you are not specifically on the specific research gap. You are now, as I mentioned to you, for the PhD, there are two types of research gap you need to know. First one is about the real world. The second one is about the state-of-the-art methods. State-of-the-art method is the thing that you want to focus. The real world is actually the real world, which is everybody try to overcome the problem. So that's what we call a real world scenario. And this is not your specific research gap. Your specific research gap is, this is the real world scenario. Everybody want to overcome the problem. You need to know the problem of the everybody punya work. So that's what we call a research gap. That will be put in your second section, which is problem statement. Okay, now it's just introduced. The problems of the pap smear is blah, 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 blah. We need more data, so whatever. So pathologist doctor will get fatigue because they have to see under microscope for a long period of time, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's what we call a real world scenario. And we know that based on this scenario, everybody try to overcome. Okay, so this cannot be set as your specific research gap. Because everybody want to overcome the problem. The research gap is something that is dedicated, specifically designed for your research work. Okay, so I hope you understand about the research gap, the general research gap, and your own research gap. Okay. Now, this is the example. Introduce the research area. Okay, so sorry. So this is, I introduced research area, so importance of the area. So I introduced the cervical cancer, okay. Then I introduced the pap smear. It is good for the early detection, but the problem now, thinner cell layer, reducing overlapping and so on, okay. Then pap smear, I also introduced Bethesda and the SCC because these two, my student introduced the Bethesda and the SCC because she will compare her techniques with these two systems. Of course, so that's why she also introduced this base system in the introduction part in the background. Okay, so I hope you're clear. So whatever is that will belongs or related to the work data, so she tried to introduce to the reader. Okay, and then limitation of research area in the real world scenario. So this previous slide is about the introduction of research area. This is the problems. So what is the problem? It takes a few days to prepare the pap smear. Okay. Although the screening process looks simple, but morphology changes to have a problem. The irregularity is not. See, now you have a nuclear membrane irregularity. So this is the much specific or much niche area to be focused on. So this is the real world problem. Because of the manual one, this is the problem that give problems to the doctors in order to read or to screen the what we call the images, the pap smear. Then the problem statement. This is the second section. Okay. After you have a research background, this is your second section. Problem statement. Highlight the state of the art work. State of the art works, because this is your main, which is specifically designed for your research work. Okay, because everybody wants to what we call to overcome the problems of the real world. But what are their problems? So the problems, their problems is actually your specific research gap. You want to make sure that your technique is better than them. So your research gap might related to that state of the methods, not the real world scenario. Okay, so I hope that you understand the difference. Okay. Then highlight the research gap. Then ensure that your research gap are the ones to be answered at the end of your research. Do not put research gap that not related to your research work. Okay, so just put the research gap that at the end of the day, your research gap too can be answered. Okay, so your whatever you need to problem. Okay, ensure the research gap are specific and clearly explained. Specific, it must be specific. And please include appropriate references to support your research gap. This is a must. You cannot, what we call, based on your assumption, you can use assumption, but it must be supported by references. You cannot use 100% based on your assumption. This is not what we call a good one. So you must make sure that whatever the assumption that you want to share, then it must be supported with appropriate references. Okay, this is one of the what we call example, the problem statement. Okay, so now the late 90s, we have a technical environment in slide preparation, which is it overcome the conventional preparation, but still this liquid base, although it's a popular, but it also have a problem in terms of insufficient to clearly distinguish the diagnostic features. Okay, so it means that they still have the problem with the what we call this pap smear. They have changed to a new one. The new one also still have the problem. So get the new one that we try to overcome this problem. Okay, so this is the problem of the current state of the art methods. This is the conventional one, the real world. So this is we want to overcome this problem. Okay, another one is this is. So these are the techniques that have been what we call done, but this is the subjective. Still, they have a problem because they are subjective. The degree of membrane irregularity could be justified differently, although they have what we call they introduce what we call new techniques, new approach, whatever. But still, the problem with the techniques that there are still a limitation of the techniques. So just highlight, state, not in details. Okay. Okay. So this is another problem statement. For example, Okay, depending on the individual also, okay, cost and UniMAP ni have a certain introduce certain techniques, but still there is a still sector technologies has a problem in order to differentiate, have what we call the what we call the consensus about the how to read the cervical cells images. Okay. Therefore, it is important to reduce the variation among individual improvements, expert through quantifying and standardizing the definition of the chromatic pattern. So this is actually what we try to, the problem has to be solved. Okay, the problem need to be solved. Okay, summary at the end of the day. So you summary everything. So we have a research get 1, get 2, whatever. So it seems that we need to address the fundamental issues on the vagueness and ambiguity of the diagnostic criteria. So in that case, we the two diagnostic criteria, which is the chromatic patterns and nuclear membrane integrity, will be focused in the study. So this is the main two important keywords or areas. So that's why these chromatic patterns and membrane integrity has been included in the what we call thesis title. So if you can see that, actually for the cervical cancer, there are a huge scope which you can free from maybe the preparations or the techniques or the preparation of the slides until and we know that the what we call the features of there are lots of features of the cervical cell can be extracted. The size, the color, the shape, and then what we call the different between the cytoplasm and the lipid and so on. There are many various what we call features to be studied. But my students only focus on two, which is chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane integrity. Meaning that, let's say they are from A to Z number of what we call features of the cervical cell can be studied, but my student only focus on features A and features B. So only two features, but she managed to support everything, support the methodology, support analysis. At the end of the day, she came out with a good what we call this. Okay, so it's not about the amount or the what we call the size or the of your research area, but it's about the niche area. How do you what we call focus and research, what we call do a research on that area properly and thoroughly. Okay, so please be aware that you must make sure know about your scope, and you have to make sure that you are major or master in that area. It's not about the number of area, but it's about the niche area specific. Okay. Okay, so the research objective, as I mentioned, short, clear, straightforward, reflect the research gap, and specific objective should be proposed for each research gap. One objective, one research gap. Objective might be realistic, do not too ambitious, as I mentioned, measurable and achievable. For example, okay, this is my research gap number 1. The contrast of the cervical cells sometimes is not clear, it's blur. So my objective will be to propose image enhancement techniques to improve the contrast of the cervical cells for the visualizations of the diagnostic features. So this is the specific gap. This is the specific. Another example. This is my student's second research gap, which is about the membrane ability. Okay. So what is the objective? To study the significance of chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane, and to differentiate between normal and abnormal. Okay, at the end of the day, he will come out with a model. In order to model based on the chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane ability, the model can differentiate between normal, low, and high. To overcome the problem of highly subjective to what we call to extract the membrane ability as well as the what we call the chromatic pattern. Okay, so this is specific research, and this is the objective to what we call to achieve that research gap. Another example, this is research number 3. Okay, so it is about also we have the same slides, but different justification and conclusion might be drawn, especially for borderline cases. Okay, so we need to have the what we call quantifying and standardized model in order for the individual human to have a more consensus results, screening results. So that's why we need to quantify the nuclear chromatic patterns, and we need to devise a model in order to have a more objective model for pathologists to do screening process. Okay. And then the last one, this is the research gap number 4. Although we specific for the specific what we call research gap, now at the end of the day, she managed to combine everything, and she managed to what we call answer the real case scenario, which is we try to what we call to have a neural network techniques, which is to differentiate between normal, low C and high C based on those features extracted from the chromatic pattern and also membrane irregularity. So this is actually the additional objective which to cover the real case scenario. But the most main part is the first 3 objectives, because it's specifically focused on those niche areas. Okay, so objective gap 1, gap 2, and gap 3. So this is the gap 4 is only the additional, because at the end of the day she have a time and managed to combine everything to develop one complete what we call system to differentiate between normal, low C, and high C. Okay, so you need to make sure that you know this is the research gap, this is the objective. Okay. Now, about the research scope, as I mentioned, you need to state the boundary or your scope of your research gap. Either your research type is application or fundamental, or you have both. Like my student, she has both fundamental and application. Fundamental is about to have a new model for the chromatic pattern as well as the boundary of the membrane irregularity, and then she combine everything to be applied for the real world. So she have both research type, which is fundamental, and also a application. So you need to identify your own type of research, either only application or fundamental or both. So as a video, we know that okay, the student is only focused on application or fundamental or else. Okay, and then you need to specify the research area. Okay, because in medical, in cervical cancer, we have a pap smear, we have a twin prep. There are several more screening process for the cervical cancer, but we only focus on the pap smear. So that's why you need to specify the niche area to be focused. Okay, so because there are few more areas, so you need to know to mention you focus to which area. And then data samples. Do you use the simulation data, or do you use the benchmark data, or do you use a real case study data? For my student, she used benchmark and also real case study, because it's PhD, as I mentioned, use benchmark and real case study. So what are the benchmark data to be used? State there. State is in your research scope. Real case studies, what are the data that you use? Okay, how many numbers of the data, and so on. And because of my student is a software, so she must state and must explain about the programming languages to be used. MATLAB, programming C, or Python, and so on. Okay, and then research level, it is until a simulation level, or until the scale, lab scale level, or you also apply to a real case study. So all of this scope must be clearly stated in your research scope in order to give the idea for the examiners. Okay, this is only the boundary, so please do not beyond this boundary. Okay, so student is human, not angel. So student have a limitation. the human have limitation. So this is only the scope of his or her research. So it will give the basic idea about the scope of your research. Okay. And then lastly is your thesis outline. Just briefly explain about the content of each chapter of the thesis. So I think this is a common one, and actually this is as a guidance to everyone. Dr. Haziza, I think we are approaching 2 hours. So, do you think we need to stop or what? Because I have a more. I'm okay if we have a second workshop to continue.
Okay, Prof. I think we can stop for this webinar series, and then we will continue in part 2.
Okay.
Second series of this. And now we have several questions from the students.
Okay.
So I extract from the chatting.
Okay.
And then perhaps a student can continue asking. So we will have 15 minutes for the Q&A session. Okay, so for the first question, may I know what is the pipeline term referred to from Omar Al-Obaidi?
Okay.
Second question, is there any difference between writing thesis and writing research proposal in terms of content from Awal Ali? Second one is, could professor explain methods to write the research question in thesis from Ahmad Faisal Anwar?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I go one by one. So the first one is about what? What Dr. Tiza? Can you this one? You go.
Okay. May I know what is?
I'm old now.
Okay, bro. Perhaps you can answer one by one question lah. Okay. So Omar Al-Obaidi asks, may I know what is the pipeline term referred to?
Okay, pipeline term, actually pipeline too is something that how do you want to design your works from A to Z, for example. Let's say you have one system, you want to develop one system. So basically you have the flow chart. So what are the flow chart? So I also use a pipeline, but in the easy keywords is actually the flow chart. So what is the flow chart from what are the stages or the processes involved? Stage 1, stage 2, 1, stage 3, 1. So that's what we call a flow chart or the approaches or the pipeline. So so do you want to change the pipeline, or you want to modify the pipeline, or you want to modify the flow chart and so on? So the pipeline here for me is referred to the flow chart of the whole approaches that you want to introduce in your research work. Okay.
Okay, so we go to the second question. Prof? Okay, is there any difference between writing thesis and writing research proposal in terms of content?
Okay. Writing thesis and writing proposal definitely they are different. Okay. Proposal is something that you only have the ideas about one problem, but maybe it can be implemented or it cannot be implemented at the end of the day. So in terms of the content, for the proposal, yes, we need the introduction, we need a problem statement, then we need a proposed methodology. But we don't have what we call the results and the discussion. We only have the expected outcome. Okay, what do you expect from your methodology? So at the end of the day, your methodology might work, or your methodology have to be modified here and there. So basically, they are different, but the only similar is they need to have the background and also the problem statement. But still, your problem statement can be changed during your research work, because sometimes your problem statement too cannot be, it's not appropriate to your whatever the method that you want to introduce. So to answer that, for me, is different, because proposal is more general The ideas, you just introduce the main idea, the main concept, but not in detail. But the thesis, everything must be in detail. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Prof. So we go for the third question. Could Professor explain methods to write the research question in thesis by Ahmad Faisal?
Okay. Research question is something that it is more on, it reflect your hypothesis, basically. So if when you have the research gap, then you have the research objective. Then from research objective to you, what are your expected outcome? This is your basically is your hypothesis lah. So based on the objective, what do you think that what we call the expected outcome or the hypothesis of your research objective and your research what we call your research research gap. The research question is something that in order for you to achieve or to what we call to support or to prove your what we call hypothesis or research objective, what are the criteria to be evaluated, to be considered. Okay, so meaning that if you want to talk about the contrast enhancement, so what are the elements to be focused? Do you want to focus only on the details of what we call the when you enhance the image? Do you want to preserve the details, or you want to make sure the detail is not enough? It's not important. It's enough for you to have a good contrast or whatever. So the objective too will help you to what we call to design your methodology, because you have the objective. So for the objective, what are the criteria that to be put inside your methods? So these are the what we call the elements to be included in your method. So based on that requirement, then you will design your methodology. So that is what we call the importance of the research question. Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, so we move to the next question. Okay. About the comparison our technique with the current technique, is there any limitation or we can choose only two is enough? For example, student Prof only compare her result techniques with two current techniques done before by Dr. Hasima Ali.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. In my student case, there are only two systems, which is Bethesda and also the Scce, which is commonly used by clinical by doctors. So that's why she only compare with the Bethesda and also the Scce. But if you refer to his work, her works on the contrast enhancement, later in the chapter, when I talk about the chapter 3, inshallah, in the second workshop. So actually, she compared with, if I'm not taken, is 8 to 10 techniques, current technique, which is related to her works and also the latest one. So, but for the Bethesda and the Scce, because there are only two common systems used nowadays, so that's why she only what we call compare with these two. Okay, for me to do the comparison, you can have two, you can have three, it's okay, but you must have a strong justification. Let's say you have 10 techniques. Let's say you have 10 existing techniques. Technique A until technique J, for example. And technique J is actually have compared with technique A until JKIT, until technique okay, technique I. Meaning that technique J have compared his technique with technique A until technique I. So it is actually enough for you to compare with the technique J, because technique J is already compared with other techniques. Okay, but I think this is impossible lah for you to have one compare with technique which the technique has been compared with other techniques. So in that case, then yes, you can only compare. You can only compare with technique J. Let's say, for example, technique J, A, B, C, D have been compared with technique E, for example. While F, G, H, I have been compared with technique J. So you can compare with technique E and technique J. Because when you compare, so automatically meaning that it has been proven that technique E and J, technique E has been better than technique A, B, C, and D, while technique J is better than technique F, G, H, and I. So it's enough for you to compare with technique E and technique J. So it depends on your nature of your research. Okay, if you can, but make sure that the comparison to you use the same techniques, you use the same data, and you use the same, or everything is the same, environment the same, situation the same, data the same, number of data the same, measurement techniques the same, analysis the same, qualitative the same, quantitative the same, everything the same, then it's okay, it's fair. Okay, so it depends on your research work. I cannot say either 2, 3 is enough. As I mentioned to you, is you have 10 techniques. If J technique already compare with the whole techniques, then it's okay for you to compare with only the J. Okay, so it depends on your techniques.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, so next question. So we have another 3 questions from the participants.
Okay.
Is it okay to put the word to study in an objective? Because sometimes we hear opinions saying that it is not a measurable objective.
Okay, to study, to investigate. If you what we call purely do your research on the fundamental, let's say you want to introduce, for example, let's say I have what we call the cell here. Let's say you want to study the what we call you have an idea to use new features which is not being used by anybody, although by doctors also do not use that feature. So you want to use that new worker features, then you can use to study, to investigate, because it's not been what we call, it's not been studied yet, because study here is compared from you will start with the appropriate, either it's appropriate to be used or not, either it can because the study too is not measurable. Okay, people say it's not measurable because the study is too huge, it's too big, it's a too what we call it is too broad. But if you refer to a very basic one, then the study can be used. It depends. Once again, it depends on your what we call your research. To study and to investigate, if you try to investigate a new one, then you need to study first. If you not to study, then how do you want to investigate the preparedness, and how you want to do the analysis and so on. So, but at the end of the day, so the study too, at the end, what we call the output will be it can be used or it cannot be used. Okay.
Okay. Second last question, I guess. Can we include research findings in chapter 1 by Abdullahi?
Okay. It depends. I said it depends on the supervisor. Some supervisor, they include the what we call the research contribution in chapter 1. But for me, I leave it as in the last final chapter, because I don't want to be my thesis to be my student thesis to be anti-climax, because if you already give what we call the climax of your research, which is this is the contribution, so it is that's something that anti-climax for me. So I want the reader or the examiner to eager to know, okay, what is the end product, so they have to read from A to from chapter 1 to chapter 5. Chapter 5, then I give, this is my contribution. So you see that is you want to initiate or want to drive the reader or the reader to read page by page, because when you already what we call state the contribution in chapter 1 is already okay. you know, this more on the impression. So, but still it depends on the supervisor. But for me, I will not ask my students to put the contribution in chapter 1 because I want to have the last one, the final outcome, the biggest what we call contribution will be at the end of your thesis. Okay, I don't want to have an anticlimax thesis. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, so next question is your mentioned student has background in computer science or biological science student. What is your advice for those who has cross-disciplinary research?
Okay, my students, all of my students, basically they are in electrical and electronic engineering. And I have my research more on towards the medical and also some of that for the material engineering. And although in the biological and chemistry, where we focus on the river quality, river water quality, based on the what we call the algae composition of the algae of the river. Then we try to investigate, try to have the system to classify the water, the river water. And then the medical, for sure, they need to know about the what we call the diseases, about the cervical cancer, about the sputum, about the malaria, about the sperm, and so on. So actually, for me, it's a very interesting when we have a multidisciplinary because we are not only focusing on the engineering side, but we want to give back to the community. So as I mentioned to you, if you want to, for sure, if you want, let's say you want to have a degree in the medical, you need to know exactly the focus, the area. So the area, let's say the cervical cancer. So you need to know about the cervical cancer, how they what we call they collect the samples from human, how they smear on the slide, how they do the reading, how they do the screening, and then you need to know everything because you need to know the problems or the real world problem. Okay, then when you know the real world problem, okay, so you know, okay, this is exactly the current problems of the preparations of the slides, for example. What is the problem? So because of that, these are the what we call the existing methods that try to what we call to overcome the problem. So you can relate. So you can have a very clear idea about the whole things, about the real problems, and also about the what we call the state of the art problems. So it will give you more knowledge and more what we call it will give you a good a clear direction. We will not what we call divert you to the right direction lah. So if you have a what we call the multidisciplinary research, yes, you have to know both about the applied what we call area and also about your own area. Okay, so although it's quite huge, but at the end of the day, it's very interesting because when I did my PhD, also in the cervical cancer, so doctors very appreciate my research work because they think, oh, this is very new, this is very so they're very because they are not what we call exposed to this kind of technology. So when we propose to them when we able to develop something to them, so they are very appreciate for them. And this actually is easy for me to also to what we call to send or to submit paper to the journals, because when I submit to the people to the journal medical based journal, they will appreciate it because as of now they only focus on the clinical manual, but now you provide them something new, so they will appreciate more. So I think is that's my opinion about the multidisciplinary research. Yeah, Dr. Aziza?
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have two last question. Okay, so can we explain briefly the focus of the research in the first chapter, then explain each topic in chapter 1?
Again?
Can we explain briefly the focus of the research, our research work in the first chapter? Then explain each topic in chapter 1.
Yeah, it should be like that. So as I mentioned to you, the section research background and also the problem statement is actually the summary of your chapter 2. Because in the chapter 2, when you have a literature review, you will have basically you will have two sections, two parts, two main parts. The first part is about the general topics of your technique, and the second part the second one will be a specific review on your state of the art methods. So basically, the general part of the chapter 2 is a summary. The summary of that part is actually to be included in your research background. While when you discuss, when you review about the what we call the state of the art methods, is actually you will summarize everything under and you put under problem statement section. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, our last question for today, today's series. Can we use WE in the thesis? Because in there is a question from our lecturer, because in overseas university, they use we in their thesis.
Okay. Now, for me, I will not allow my student to use we, I, you, whatever. Okay. Because as a supervisor, I cannot claim that research is belong to me, because the research is totally done by a student. Maybe I help him or her in terms of they start here and there, whatever, but totally the whole thing actually come from the students. So that's why I will not allow my students to use we, because we refer to student and supervisor. I will not get the credit. I only get the credit for as a supervisor, because I only supervise and guide. I'm not the one who do the what we call who do the what we call the research. And also similar, when I send the paper, submit the paper, I will not put my name at the first, because I know that work is actually my student work. So I put my student as a main author, me as a corresponding author. So either I will put my name as second, or maybe at the last as a corresponding author, because I cannot claim the credit as a main author, because I know I'm not the one who did the job. Okay, so that's why in the thesis, I don't want student to use a we, because actually this is his or her work, and then you should not use I, whatever, because it is not in Malaysia. It is I think in Malaysia, it's not. I think it's not a technically sound. So just use this study, this research, or whatever. So because at the end of the day, during the Viva is only the students yang akan have been questioned. It's not the supervisor. So it's not fair. We here, then only the student get the what we call the what we call the supervisors take credit. Okay, so for me, I preferably please do not use what we call we, I, you, and so on. So you just use this study, this research, and whatever. So it's more for me. It's more prepared. Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Prof. Okay, so I think that we have come to the ends, and thank you very much for all the questions, all the good testimonial on this webinar. And thank you also very much for Professor IR Dr. Nur ASHIDI for giving a very good sharing webinar to our postgraduate and also academic staff of UniMAP, and also outside UniMAP, USM, UTM, and so on. And we hope that this seminar will guide our students to providing well-organized, structured, and good with impactful thesis, Prof? And yeah, inshallah. Okay, so please keep update from our SCCE and also UniMAP Facebook page for second series. So we will be organizing a second series webinar by Professor IR Dr. Nur ASHIDI. Prof has anything else to say? The last word.
Okay.
Participant.
As a PhD student, master students by research, you must have a very good technical what we call skill. Okay, PhD is not about. I know some of the examiners they comments on the formatting or whatever. So me as a supervisor and a examiner, that one should be covered by the supervisor, okay, and the student, because the formatting whatever is not the main thing. The main thing is a technical content. So as a student, yeah, sometimes students are afraid if I become the engineer because I'm more on the technical. So because for me, PhD is about technical. So you have to know your knowledge on the technical is very strong. So that will give you a very to become a good researcher in the future. If you don't have the what we call the strong on the in knowledge of technical, so yeah, maybe you can pass your PhD now, but you will have a problems if you want to further your research in the future. So please make sure this is the time for you. You have a 3 years or 3 to 4 years. This is time for you to improve your knowledge, to improve your technical writing style. Okay, so technical writing is actually easy as compared to the literature, the English whatever. It is not please make sure that you have a very good technical knowledge at the end of the day, then you really have a good technical thesis. Okay, so that's my advice.
Okay, thank you very much for the good tips, Prof.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we end our webinar for today. And for the certificate, we will email to all the participants and also the speaker. And all the participants can download the slides and also video in the link that will be shared by our committee. Okay, so thank you very much for attending this talk.
Okay,
To
thank
all of
you.
you.
Apa? Tak, tadi ada. Oh, dia